What John McEnroe said was essentially correct. Is that an opinion? Or is that a fact? It's a fact. Because men and women do differ with their athletic abilities. Fact. You'll get some articles that try to say men and women are even the same, not just similar, but the same athletically. That tends to stop after about the ages of 11 and 12. Anything beyond that, you look at any scientific studies, I'll post a couple in the description, and some other articles. It changes. It's obvious. We know it. We don't even need to scientifically see it. If you just watch male and female sports, at the highest level of their sports, of course, adults, you will see the differences. You would just have to be some insane radical feminist to not see the differences. And even then, they do see the differences. They just have a confirmation bias that no matter what, the obvious truth in front of them will just not become apparent. You just become so blinkered that you don't want to see the truth. What's the damage of saying the truth? Maybe we want to promote women on the same level as men so they get the same money, and so that for all the thousands of years of crap and second-class citizenship that women have had, and being not little more than animals in a lot of societies and situations, now finally they should get promoted at the same level as men, or quite frankly even more so. Have a sort of Rooney rule, or overly positively discriminate in the same way that we are for black people. Why should you not do that for women? To some extent, I get that. To some extent, in the Eastern world especially, they should be promoted more than men. To get some sort of parity, you need to do that. But at what point does that stop? I would say when we get to science in a fairly open society, open world that we have in the Western world, we don't need to dumb down things anymore for women too much. In some areas, there will still be some work that needs to be done. But we have quite a few world leaders that are women on the boards of trusts, the politicians, the numbers are going up all the time. When exactly does that equal that everything's okay then? When it gets to 50% of women, 60% of women in the Houses of Commons and Lords are women? When exactly do we count that everything is now completely perfect and equal? When women stop getting wolf whistled? Or what? What exactly? When do we reach an end point when we can go back to trying to make sense scientifically with things? Because newsflash, life hasn't always been easy for men. They kill themselves far more often than women. Look at the stats again. 2/3 of suicides happen to men. When it comes to divorce and parental rights, the mother gets preferential treatment much more. You could say understandably so, because the mother does have a unique place in the upbringing and lives of a child, but still, if we're talking about equality, is that particularly fair? I'm not sure. The people who do the physically most demanding jobs in the world are men, and therefore also the people who die the most, well over 90% of of people who die in the workplace are males. Life is not always a bunch of roses for men either. But the topic of John McEnroe and his comments in particular, how far do we need to go to tiptoe? This is actually going against women. This is, the more that we try to pretend there aren't differences, the more this is placing an unfair strain on women to try to live up to males playing sport. And that goes into anywhere, any walk of life. How far do we go with this? We can only deny the truth for so long. There are differences. The reason people generally go to watch the highest quality men's sport is because it is better than women playing the highest quality that they can in their sport. To an extent, that'll be because in the past women haven't been promoted or pushed or allowed to be in sport, and so the quality of the sport is trying to catch up to the physical, mental, tactical, strategic potential. That's fair. But if you look at all the studies, there's at least a 10% average in every possible physical capacity that we can do, in a similar way that disabled people can't do what able-bodied people can do. Why would you expect the same If you were saying disabled people can do the same as able-bodied people, we should all give them the same money and we should all be obligated to watch them and everything is exactly the same, we're simply going to be dumbing down the actual sport, are we not? They can't do what able-bodied people can do. Women, by nature, hormones, testosterone, body shape, mentality, physical competitiveness on average, such things like that, aren't the same as the most aggressive testosterone-fueled men. And so there are differences. There will always be differences. No matter how much we promote women in certain ways, there will inevitably be physical and mental differences. It's not to say one's better or worse, just that there are differences. The more we pretend the differences aren't there, the more we're expecting too much from women and girls. And the more we're looking to dumb things down from men and boys. How exactly that's going to help society? Maybe you can educate me, but for all of my thinking on it, I'm not quite sure how we can actually do that. Again, some parts of the world, we really need to heavily push women, and I get that, absolutely. In other parts of the world, we need to just respect our differences. Things that, jobs that we do the same, that we can do the same, and therefore should get paid the same money, and other areas, walks of life where we're not the same and therefore we shouldn't get paid the same money, and respect that and understand that. I'm not saying that it means one's better or worse, that we have our strengths and differences. We are made differently. We are made to complement each other. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the science of that. It's not about being threatened by women or women can't live up to men. It's just respecting the scientific obvious differences that we all see in front of us. We can try to pretend our hardest, absolutely try our hardest to pretend these differences aren't there. They will always be there. Their logic just dictates that. Unless if we want to give women endless amounts of steroid injections and testosterone, if we want to go that route, but then potentially if you see some female bodybuilders and look what they look like when they're having steroids, if we want to go that route, if we think that's healthy, I personally don't, but hey, maybe that would help it. Unless we go down that route of genetically modifying ourselves, hey, who knows where we will be if we start doing that in the future. I wouldn't put it past humans. But until we're genetically changing ourselves and modifying things, nature has limits. We can improve women's sport, we can improve men's sport. Ever reaching a parity, ever really reaching that same level of physical quality, I think that is grotesquely unfair to place that kind of strain on women. And the militant feminists who are pushing for that to be the case, they really need to just take a look in the mirror that you are going to be creating so many complexities for women in the future. When we're getting the likes of Serena Williams thinking she can argue back against the facts that John McEnroe obviously spoke of, that there seems to be half the public out there actually seem to think John McEnroe was wrong, and the other half obviously know he's correct. When you speak of facts, the facts will always remain, no matter what society does. Remember, society will change again in 10 years' time. What we think of as the right on man, progressive, will change again. It always develops. Science, however, remains the same. Truth remains the same. If we want to genetically modify things and change certain science, then we'll probably also find out that there can be consequences for meddling with things like that. But you can potentially do that. Until we actively change science, though, it remains the same. It makes sense. Nature has its way of balancing things out pretty well. John McEnroe was correct. Was he right to say it? Should we all just pretend truth doesn't matter and just go around just promoting ourselves, leaving huge gaps open for people to just say, well, hold on, this actually doesn't make sense? Why don't we try to help people, encourage everybody to be sportsmen, to do whatever they can, physically, mentally, whatever, but whilst appreciating some limitations and some differences between ourselves. Men and women are different, will continue to always be different. Why don't we just learn to enjoy that? It's not better or worse, it's different. We complement each other. I don't get it. Maybe you have some amazing understanding that I don't. Maybe we just think we need to overly push women in some of these areas. But again, I think by overly pushing them, we're actually dumbing down what it means to be a top-class sportsman. or top class in any physical area, when we say people who can't do something the same way as the elite can do it are the same as them, surely that counts as dumbing down. Just my opinion. Or is it fact?